and I am a very unhappy man. When the lights go out at the beginning of a Grand Prix, my traditional cry is go, go, go. But are they going to go, go, go today? This is no time, in my opinion, for discussions to be held on the grid about whether they're going to try when the lights go out to start properly or just go round behind each other.
2001 Italian Grand Prix was due to be held on the weekend of the 14th, 15th and 16th of September 2001, with Friday's track action coming just 3 days after the 9/11 terror attacks in New York City. There was of course some doubt about whether the Grand Prix would or indeed should go ahead. Frank Williams said, "Life must go on. In my opinion, the Grand Prix should happen. In fact, I will go further. It will happen." Enrico Ferrari, the director of the Monza circuit, agreed, saying, "We are working with a sentiment of infinite sadness, but life must continue." Some disagreed, however, with Ralf Schumacher saying it felt wrong that the Grand Prix was being run, and, speaking a year later, brother Michael said, "It was a key period in my life, with the attack on the Twin Towers and the dramatic injury to Alex Zanardi. It was difficult to get back in the car and drive again as if nothing had happened. I didn't feel like it, and I would have rather been anywhere else than driving. I felt like it was a bad sign to be driving at Monza after what had happened. I was very resistant, but then I decided to get out on the track, although my heart wasn't in it. I was there in the car, but in reality I was somewhere else." The injury to Alex Zanardi, which Michael Schumacher mentioned, came at a kart race in Germany, and news of the crash swept through the F1 paddock soon after qualifying. To pay respects to the victims of the 9/11 attacks, 3 teams altered their liveries. Ferrari removed all sponsorship from their cars and painted their nose cones black. Jaguar had black engine covers, and Jordan had a US flag on their engine cover. Additionally, all pre- and post-race ceremonies were cancelled, and there was to be no champagne sprayed on the podium. In qualifying, Juan Pablo Montoya took pole ahead of the Ferraris of Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher. Ralph would start alongside his brother in 4th ahead of Jordan Gianno Trulli, with both McLarens of David Coulthard and Mika Hakkinen starting 6th and 7th respectively. With news of Alex Zanardi's accident filtering through after qualifying, and 9/11 still dominating people's thoughts, contemporary reports linked the paddock atmosphere that Saturday evening to Imola in 1994, where tragically Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna were killed. This was heightened by big multi-car crashes at the beginning of both Porsche Super Cup and International Formula 3000 races.
It was in the middle of the grid that mayhem was unleashed. Alessandro Zampedri tapped Bruno Eichmann, who catapulted into the barriers, taking Fabio Babini with him and then bouncing back onto the track. All the cars behind were brought to a standstill, but they were all able to squeeze through.
We are watching, and the red has gone, and it looks like a very good start indeed for Bisonia, but somebody's on the grass on that far side. Bisonia moved into the lead straight away. Justin Wilson has tucked in behind him, but I don't know whether he knew the car was down the inside. Oh, now we've got 1, 2, 3 up in one go into each other. One's bounded over there. That's the nose come off the car as well.
These incidents brought back memories of the Italian Grand Prix 1 year earlier in 2000. On the first lap, at the second chicane, a massive multi-car accident saw debris and wheels fly off at all angles. One of the wheels from Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Jordan struck Fire Marshal Paolo Gislimberti and killing him instantly. With all of those factors in mind, Michael Schumacher tried to get the drivers to agree to not overtake until after the second chicane on the first lap. He proposed this at the Sunday morning drivers' meeting. Most drivers agreed, although Jacques Villeneuve didn't, saying, "We're race car drivers. We're all very happy to sign contracts at the beginning of the season and to earn millions of dollars. We've known all year that there was going to be a race at Monza, and nobody complained until Sunday morning when the discussion started." Team bosses were also against it, with McLaren's Ron Dennis saying while he would support whatever choice the drivers made, he didn't think the right time for this discussion was on the Sunday morning before the Grand Prix. Benetton boss Flavio Briatore, not one to shy away from controversy, was much more emphatic, saying, "If my drivers don't want to overtake on this first lap, they can look for another team next year." The FIA said that they wouldn't make an official rule, meaning that it had to be a private agreement between all drivers. Michael Schumacher was still trying to make the agreement happen on the drivers' parade and even on the grid, but eventually, much to Michael's displeasure, it was called off and the drivers would overtake at the start as usual. 4 years later, at the infamous 2005 US Grand Prix, in which only 6 cars started, Schumacher cited this incident as one of his reasons for racing instead of trying to come to an agreement to allow all of the cars to start the race. This is him speaking after that race.
I tell you one story, not so long ago. In Monza, we had the death of a marshal, and all of us drivers agreed we would want, for the first 2 chicanes, yellow flags. And there was no less than 2 or 3 team owners which told their drivers, you would not respect the yellow flag. Just ignore what you have maybe said or not said. We want you to race, and we force you to race. And it's the same people that have been today on the other side. So Formula One is a tough business. We're working very hard, and as I mentioned before, we have had a tire which is quicker. We didn't use that because of we knew what is going to face us here. I'm not saying that the others purposely choose something wrong, but whatever it is their problem, not our problem. And I don't think you can ask the people who are not responsible for to take the responsibility.
There was still some confusion among the spectators as to whether the drivers would be racing as soon as the 5 red lights went out. I think this answered it quite clearly.
Sure enough, Jenson Button in the Benetton comes streaking through, maximising the launch control benefit. It's Juan Pablo Montoya leading, and the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher in 3rd position behind Rubens Barrichello. A spinner already. That will be Jarno Trulli up at the front of the grid, and it is.
I think you'll find Jenson Button got involved in that. He used his great start and ended up once again at least a row ahead of where he started the race. And I think when we see a replay of that, you're going to see Button involved in it, but the front 4 then away cleanly.
Yeah, Montoya leading, and Ralf Schumacher was in 3rd position. His brother's challenging him on the inside in the Ferrari and takes the place. That is the answer. When the lights go out, the red mist comes down, and they are racing.
A good start for Montoya, who stayed ahead of Barrichello at the start. Michael Schumacher got past his brother Ralph to take 3rd at the first Lesmo, the corner where the race would have started properly if he'd got his way and there was no overtaking at the start. Further down the field, Jarno Trulli retired, and Jenson Button lost his front wing in the incident, hitting Trulli and spinning him round. Jenson Button's engine expired on lap 5, and David Coulthard's failed on lap 7. With that, and Eddie Irvine falling back through the field, it was a torrid day for the British drivers. Meanwhile, at the front, the 2 Ferraris were keeping pace with Montoya's Williams, prompting some to theorise that they were on a 2-stop strategy compared to Montoya's 1-stop. By lap 9, Montoya was struggling, with his Michelin tyres blistered, and Rubens Barrichello took his opportunity and took the lead. He immediately pulled away, and his lead was almost 9 seconds by lap 16. Michael Schumacher was harrying Montoya but couldn't pass him, and on lap 18, Schumacher made his first pit stop, confirming that he was on a 2-stop. And 1 lap later, his teammate and race leader Rubens Barrichello made it in for his stop. It was a long pit stop for Barrichello as his fuel rig was faulty and the team had to switch to use Schumacher's instead. He rejoined in 3rd behind both Williams drivers, with Montoya leading Ralph. Once he'd made his way back to the paddock, David Coulthard said this about the no overtaking agreement at the start.
Just one final question for you. What was Michael saying to you, all the drivers, before the race?
Well, we tried to get an agreement between all the drivers to avoid an incident, and largely we achieved that, but then the team owners obviously stepped in and then it started to break everyone up, and we just all agreed to be sensible and try and avoid an incident. So that's what I tried to do, and pretty much agreed something with Jarno that if I hadn't passed him before the first corner, then we weren't going to risk the incident at the first turn. So a little disappointed that Jenson decided to come down the inside. Clearly it ruined his race by doing that, and it could have caused other damage to other cars. So we're all out there to win, and this is a competition. It's not a moving over situation, but obviously emotions are running high, and I think that if the word goes out that we're all going to be sensible, I believe that all the drivers should stick to it. If you can't be unanimous in that, then what can we be?
the road.
And this 4-car battle led by Bernoldi in 8th position is turning into a 6-car battle, because now Heidfeld is closing up in 12th position in the Sauber. There he is, and behind Helmut Kimi Räikkönen.
And here's Montoya, your race leader, about to come up behind that enormous squabble. So sensibly, Williams are going to bring him in this time around.
When Pablo Montoya pitted on lap 28, slightly earlier than scheduled in order to avoid the traffic which had built up behind the slow but difficult to overtake Enrico Bernoldi. Ralf Schumacher assumed the lead, and Barrichello was also ahead of Montoya, who rejoined in third. On lap 35, Ralf Schumacher finally made his one and only pit stop of the race, allowing Barrichello to retake the lead, 15 seconds ahead of Montoya, and with one stop left to do. Michael Schumacher made his second pit stop in third place on lap 40, rejoining fourth behind his brother Ralf. One lap later, Barrichello pitted for the final time. He rejoined third, and the order was now Montoya, Ralf, Barrichello, then Michael in fourth. By lap 46, Ralf Schumacher's tyres had blistered and Barrichello had caught him.
Look at this battle for second.
It's going to be Barrichello at the end of the straight. Barrichello got a nice slipstream off the parabolica, and I think he can brake later as well, and he has track position. Barrichello will take second place. Ralf desperately trying to go down the outside, and look, that in my view is taking an advantage of the slip road.
Barrichello passed Ralf on lap 47 to take second, but with only 6 laps to go, Montoya had a lead of 7 seconds, looking like it would be simple for him to the end and to take the win. And that was what happened. The rest of the race was uneventful, and Montoya crossed the line on lap 53 to take his first win in only his 15th Grand Prix start. It was also the first F1 win for a Colombian driver. Barrichello finished second ahead of Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher.